So I've got the inside panel for these cutouts where the passengers step through. I've got them glued into place in front of the rear seat, and I have it on both sides of the front seat going up to the front frame to the driver's box. I haven't done this second seat yet because my prop that's holding my top up is fastened to the back of that seat. Well, I need to put these irons on to attach to the top so I can remove this. So now I need to fit my rear seat into this back panel and get my measurements where I can kind of tune this up a little bit where the final curve is going to be after I get this fitted into the rear frame. Well, the top irons that fasten to these 3 bolts here were original. So these bolts are in the same location of where those holes were on that iron. And you can see how this bottom one is right in the middle of this joint, half in the framework and half into the seat arm. So I have to kind of angle it up a little bit to fit it into there. And on the right side, I use my iron for the placement of those holes as well. And you can see the difference between the left side and the right side. This one is not interfering with my seat arm on this rear seat. It's above that joint. It's one of those cases that, again, they are not 100% symmetrical when they were built originally. So I had this all fitted into place before I put this rear panel on. So I want to make sure everything still fits. I kind of angle around my bolt here. So I've got to come back a little bit. So the back of this seat arm should come up flush with my rear panel. So I need to come back a little further, and I have room in my joint. That puts me flush right there. And I'm a little strong here, which is good because I want to file this down to where we are flush in the whole curve. You see how our bolt is half and half here. Make sure we're tight both sides. You hear that get solid, can't you? So we're flush at the top, and again we're a little strong down here, but that's good. So I can fit that right where it needs to be. Well, this leading edge, that's where my panel comes up, but I want this recessed back 1/8 of an inch, so when I put that 1/8 inch thick iron on there, the iron actually is flush with this angle here on the leading edge of this seat. So that'll give me a starting point, and I'm just going to bring this back 1/8 of an inch. So when this is finished, this will actually get sucked up tight. I'll glue this joint to the frame. There'll be either 2 or 3 screws. I'll have to look at an old one to remember. And then they get plugged. That iron comes down about in this area here. It covers this joint, covers this whole edge grain here. But I don't want to do that yet. I take the seat off so I can adjust that step through. So when I position these seats on the frames, I am about 3/8 of an inch from the frame to the leading edge. And that's about where these seats are going to want to sit. And that's where I have the front seat also. But again, I want to recess this back. So as you look at the lines, the angle of this seat arm front is going to kind of follow in to this direction here. They're both kind of flowing that direction. And then the seat in front has this angle to it at the back of the seat, and you can see how this kind of flows in that same kind of style. It's just the grace of the flow of these things. It flows back here and then it flows up to the seat arm. It's one thing I like about these coaches. They're very graceful. Well, these are pretty rough cut. Now I went to my old side that I have and I made a pattern off of that. And this is pretty close to where that was at. So you can see that this is going to be a little more in line with this here. As this comes down, Yeah, I'm really close there. I didn't give myself anything too much. But then as it comes back up into this seat here, this is kind of the flow that I want. So we're going to come down into here, and I'm not going to remove hardly anything here. Most of it's going to be on the inside. And this will kind of be the finished flowing curve. Now I can kind of blend this in. I can't do the back yet until I'm able to move this middle seat and put my plate inside. So the cutout to the rear seat is going to be kind of in this area here as well. I'm kind of thinking. So again, you can see the flowing curve there. I have to put my plate in here yet. Now this back seat is an inch higher. I kind of have to make that adjustment here. It's going to come up somewhat like so into about that area there. That'll be more of the finished cutout. And then this is what I made for the front entry. It's going to be more into this area here. Again, this is going to come up to the leading edge, be about an 1/8 inch recessed. But that'll be kind of the style of this cutout. Well, this is another one of those places that I like using these 4.5 inch flap discs for sanding on wood. And I like the cordless because I'm doing a lot of movement here to get these curves in, and I don't like that cord flopping around getting in the way. So this is what I'm going to use. You know, this is the X-Lock style. It's easy on and off. This is the one that I've been using, and this is pretty common result when sanding on wood. It's not worn out yet, but yet it kind of gets filled up with all the wood resins and what all. So when it gets to this stage, this is when I shift it back and I start using it on steel. I'm going to put a fresh one on to do this sanding here. And it's one thing that I've come to like about these X-Lock discs. They're easy on and off. So I've got my line scribed in here, and I'm just going to sand it down close to that line, and then I'll do some hand sanding to finish it up. That little frayed edge kind of hides my mark there, doesn't it? So it hasn't even hardly touched this flap disc yet. You can sand a lot of wood with this. So these are the 7-inch discs that I use on my big angle grinder, and these are also zirconia. And it allows me just to kind of contour and finish this up. It's a nice smooth surface. So we're right up to that line. That's going to be an 1/8 inch behind this leading edge. That's going to leave a real nice smooth surface for that iron. When I'm freehanding these in, you know, this doesn't give a real smooth surface because I am freehanding. But when I take this disc, I can take and just make it conform to whatever bend I need. Even if I go up into the front, I can make it real tight. But that's where I actually like these discs for finish sanding by hand. So this just feathers out right into this framework. When you're free-handing something like this, it's tough to know whether you're square. The best way I've come to watch is this line here. If it is square, then my sander or grinder is square. If it starts to go off one direction or the other, then I know I'm holding my disc crooked. So I watch that line there to make sure it stays square, and then I keep that sanding disc at that angle. So this eventually is going to come down just a little more, and I'll take this glue joint down to where it's flush, but I'm going to wait till I put this other end in, and then I'll flush this all out together. Got just a little bit more to go right there. It's really close. you remember from the past, wherever there are screws that are used that could be visible after the finished paint job is on, those are all filled so that they are not seen. That's why we have these screw heads here where the frame is fastened to the frame of the body. Those are filled as well. But you notice I didn't fill these screws that go across the front of the seat. And that is because there is a piece of wood put on here that is about 3/4 of an inch tall. It's square in the back and then it's tapered to match the taper of the front of the seat frame. So that's nailed on top and it covers all these screw heads, and this acts as a bumper to kind of help that seat cushion remain in place. So that strip will cover these screws, and that's why I didn't fill them. And now these seat arm rails, I didn't fill these screws either that are fastened to the back because that gets completely covered with upholstery. And if you remember on the back, we have these bumpers that stop the luggage from chewing against this rear panel. These get covered, but these would be visible, so I filled those. Then there's another bumper that comes on either side of this center frame. So this center set of screws would be visible, so those get filled. These screws get covered, but these would be visible, so they get covered with filler as well. So I'm not quite ready to put the rockers back on yet. When I put this wood trim on, I want to be able to sand that bottom trim flush with the bottom of my panel, so I don't want those rockers in the way yet. So I'm going to put those wood trims on, and then this iron that gets fitted to these step screws, these seats cushion stops, some of that final trim. But this is getting to more and more to look like what it's going to be when it's finished. Appreciate you coming along. Thanks for watching.